Well, greetings, friends, family, and esteemed colleagues.
Welcome to the pilot.
My name is Rickus.
And I'm Hursty.
And this is a yet-to-be-named podcast all about whiskey.
And other things related to whiskey and not related to whiskey.
So what do we have today? Today, we have a selection from the Glenlivet Distillery, the Master Distillers Reserve. Glenlivet being a Highland whiskey from Scotland. The selection includes just the Master Distillers Reserve, described as smooth flowing one. We also have the Master Distillers Reserve Small Batch and the Master Distillers Reserve Solera Vatted.
Solera. A wee little trial tasting set there. Lovely box. Lovely presentation.
It is. So I guess we start with your...
We should go left or right?
You want to start with the Solera first?
Oh, no. I must have been looking at them in a mirror.
But I was thinking start with just the standard Master Distillers.
Start in the middle. I like it.
Maybe go small batch afterwards, and then I think the Solera, for my money, is probably going to have the most sort of external influence to its character.
It's probably going to be the most complex.
Yeah, I dare say leave that till last. Nothing stopping us from pouring up all three and nosing them to compare, though.
That's true.
So, Mick, what got you into whiskey? Or when did you first start getting into whiskey?
I remember my first whiskey experience. It was in a mate's shed, probably 14 years old. The classic Johnny Walker Red. And it was my last whiskey experience for a long time after that.
You're a very early starter compared to myself.
Look, I got nothing bad to say about Johnny Walker, except I don't drink it. But I was young, and it was the only thing we found in my mate's garage. My first, I remember getting a gift pack of the 6 classic malts for my 18th birthday from a mutual friend of ours, Jesse Aiken. And I remember trialing them. If I remember correctly, it was the Glenkinchie, the Talisker, the Lagavulin, the Dalwhinnie, and
there must have been an Isla in there for sure. Bowmore, perhaps?
I think the Lagavulin was the Isla.
Oh, yeah, yep. Sorry.
I'm not sure. I can't remember what the other one was, but I remember not loving any of them, but being drawn to the Lagavulin, the depth of the smoke of the Isla, and that's where my whiskey journey started.
I'm rather astounded that you sort of went straight for the thick and meaty off the bat. Kind of. It took me quite a while to warm up to an Isla. That's
fair. It's heavy, but I like smoke. I love bacon. It had the most. I don't know, the depth. I don't think I appreciated it for what it was at the time, but
it probably wasn't about the taste at the time.
But I didn't really start understanding whiskey until I was working at the Hotel Reef Casino in Cairns. So I would have been probably 19, 20. And we had a woman come out from Johnny Walker and did a 3-day taste testing course, and were taught to separate the flavours in whiskey. None of them was single malts. It was mostly Johnny Walker range at the time.
She didn't happen to be a Johnny Walker rep by any chance?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yep. Cute Irish girl, but it was all Johnny Walker. It was all in favour of Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker paid for the whole thing. But it was taught the history of whiskey, how to separate the flavours, the different profiles, the different characteristics of the region. So it expanded a lot on, that first 6 classic malts gift set, which started me way back in the way back in the day, 2 years previously. But and then adding water to separate the different characteristics of it, and that kind of, it started from there. I started being really interested in whiskey and appreciating the things that made good single malt, even though none of them were single malt that we tasted on the day. Once I realised that a blend was a bunch of malts put together, and that the purists were single malt fanatics, I started looking into single malts and started drinking them. It was a while ago. What about you?
Relatively new to the game compared to yourself. I'd say it's only been the past sort of probably 7 or 8 years, I guess. Yeah, it would have been around 30. Always liked whiskey. And I do remember that sort of the turning point for me was that first whiskey show that we went to. Actually, if I go back a few years before that, I was Glenfiddich 12-year-old through and through. That was
classic Speyside.
Yeah, but in hindsight now, it's pretty stock standard and rather boring Dram. Still nice, still hits a spot. If I can't decide on something to go to, I'll go straight to that. And I think I was coming back from Europe maybe, and I asked a woman in the duty-free shop if she drank whiskey and if she could recommend anything, and she said she didn't drink whiskey, but they had the Lafroig Pedro Jimenez cask. They had that. It was a duty-free only, apparently. So I just thought, yeah, sure, why not? If this is the only place I can get it, I'll have a shot. And I got home, cracked it, and was overwhelmingly disappointed at the time. At the time, a lot has changed since. Just wasn't to my flavour profile. There's just so much going on, so complex, so big. Fast forward a few years later, we end up at the whiskey show. I end up going home with 3 Islas. Something just broke me that day. I think it may be just because I just started way too heavy, way too smoky, and just had to ease into it. So I remember that that Amrit Peat had really got me at the whiskey show. That was great.
Hell of a whiskey.
Yeah, and then everything from there, just more and more smoke. By the time we got to the Ardbeg stall, I was I'm loving this, absolutely loving this. So yeah, I think I came home with the Amrit Peated Benriach Septenderson, maybe, if that's how it's pronounced. I'm not sure what the third one was. Might have been a Ledaig 10-year-old, maybe.
That was a good show.
Yeah, that was a marvellous day out. Learnt a lot.
On that note, I'd like to make it very clear we are not whiskey professionals in any way, shape or form. We're probably not even qualified to be doing a podcast about whiskey. The only reason we are is because we really love whiskey.
Oh, staunch enthusiasts.
I actually remember a conversation at my joint one afternoon when I think I pulled down a bottle of Lagavulin and went, this is probably my favourite whiskey on this shelf is this. And the look on your face was like, oh, dude, like, how do you deal with the Dettol smell? Oh, shit, man. I didn't associate Dettol with this whiskey until right now. Now look, it smells fucking Dettol.
Thankfully, you don't get that anymore.
No.
And now Lagavulin, if money was no object, that Lagavulin 16 would be my daily dram.
Such a good whiskey.
Yeah, so smooth but so powerful.
It's funny how you can the journey of whiskey, obviously a lifetime journey, and we're still early on in being young fellas, But the range of flavour profiles throughout the country of Scotland, it's a magic spirit. There's even just the difference in different whiskies in Ireland, the different expressions of the different distilleries. It's, for mine, whiskey's the most beautifully simple yet beautifully complex drink.
Yeah.
It can be endlessly
Definitely
talked
agree.
about. It can be endlessly wanked on about. But at the end of the day, it's just a fucking nice drink. Speaking of which, I'm thirsty, Rick.
Parched, mate. Alright, so we've just got the standard Master Distillers Reserved.
Now, while you're pouring, 'cause I'm going to let you pour, because you've got the whiskey in your hand, I'm going to read the description on the back of the box. The Master Distillers Reserve. Maturation in 3 different types of cask gives this expression its unique depth of flavour that includes creamy coconut, soft fudge, dried fruit, and spicy richness. Now, I've always... Look, I don't have the most developed palate in the world. Years of cigarettes and, abuse of poor spirit, but I have always thought the descriptions are just a little highbrow. Creamy coconut. Look, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and without having tasted or even knows the dram yet, I'm going to say that coconut's not going to be the dominant flavour, but it's probably the most dominant marketable flavour that they can put in their little 40-word description.
I often find some of that descriptions rather suggestive, and I'd almost prefer to not read it sometimes and taste it for myself, and then go to it and see if that's what I picked up.
Oh, I'm sorry I fucked that for you.
Not at all.
But I know what you mean. It's kind of it's the way I feel when quite often we get the description of a new whiskey from the Whisky Club, or any new dram that you've come across or someone talks about. I agree. I think it's way better to sit to taste before reading it. Otherwise, I find sometimes you end up a little disappointed. You end up having expectations that are unfulfilled, and it can affect your experience. Yeah.
Otherwise, it can go the opposite way, and it is quite suggestive, and you just agree with what they've written. You sort of don't develop any kind of
there's
impression
that
yourself. Yeah.
Yep. I love these cute little beakers. They're fucking cool. So for the
Quite delicate on the nose.
For the audio-only listeners, Rick's using a proper nosing tulip glass, whereas I've just got my favourite glass in my hand, which is a little like a balloon.
Actually, I might pour up all 3 so I can compare side by side.
Why not? You've got 3 tulip glasses there.
And I'll go...
Oh, you're right, it is light.
Yeah, it's rather quite delicate. But it does smell pretty classic Highland.
Yeah, quite floral. Nothing really dominating on the nose. Just the spirit itself, and the wood. Not a lot of creamy coconut on the nose.
No, I do get the vaguest hint of coconut, but I kind of... You're much better with providing a description to the aromas that you get, more so than I am. I definitely wouldn't have went down the coconut path.
No, I wouldn't have said coconut on the nose. It's floral, like it tends to be a word I use often with Highlands, but that heather, like the kind of delicate not overpoweringly floral scent that just reminds me of bees and
I was about to say the floral for me is like a delicate honey, gives way to a really light honey.
Kind of like a low hill covered in little white flowers.
It's funny, I was actually getting that same visual. Quite an oily dram. It's got a reasonably heavy robe on it.
Yeah, nice robe. I think there's a touch of spice there. Again, not overpowering. It smells like it's nicely balanced.
That is quite well balanced, but yeah, on the bit of pepper on the tongue. More spice than pepper, though.
Kind of smell the wood. Are these all triple? I'll read it up.
I believe so, yeah. They're all triple cask. Matured?
So it smells like there's some virgin oak in there. Or new oak. I'd assume that one of the barrels will be exit bourbon.
Okay, here we go. A range of 3 superlative single malt whiskies, each one matured in 3 types of oak cask. For added depth, distinct richness, and unique complexity of flavour.
That's a lot of lovely words. Superlative.
That is some A-grade drivel.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. There's a lot of fucking nice words, but not a lot of actual content.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like fucking nice. Nice. Alright. Well, let's taste the fucking.
Yeah, I can't say that this is anything exceptional, but it's definitely not terrible by any means. The taste is quite delicate. It goes with the aroma is quite descriptive of the flavour.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It doesn't taste like it's spent too long in wood.
No. I'd say it could almost spend longer. I could definitely stand for a bit longer.
You can the wood's predominant, and I'd say the new oak is predominant. There's the spice there. There is that. Again, I'm not picking up any coconut, but yeah, I might just be offended by the fact that they've said fucking coconut. But there is that sweetness from the picture of the white flowers. It's not overpowering. It's not dominant. There's not a lot of fruit. Like, it smells floral and sweet, but there's not there's not a real. I can't really pick out any dominant fruit flavors. There's no citrus to it. If there was fruit in it, I'd say there was maybe the tiniest hint of apricot.
Yeah, the more I nose it, it's not getting any more complex. I wouldn't be in a hurry to go out and buy it.
Usually the second sip for me opens it up a bit more, but you're right, there isn't a lot offered on the second nose or the second sip. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad.
No, it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination.
It's light. It's the kind of whiskey that I'd be happy to give to someone that wasn't a whiskey drinker, that was looking at your kind of entry level, nothing too dominant or overpowering,
gentle introduction.
Nothing that was going to they're not going to screw their face up. It's not too heavy on the alcohol, on sometimes you get a whiskey that's cask strength. It's just the alcohol's just a little too dominant and it's just a little overpowering. That's not there. So it's not as if I think it could spend some more time in wood.
I agree. Totally agree.
I think it's, I don't want to say it's lacking, but it's a simple whiskey. It celebrates the area, because the Highlands is, well, I mean, I've never been there, but yeah, there's no sea, there's no salt to it, there's no peat. Obviously, it's a Highland. It's not a peated expression, because you will come across Highland malts that are peated. But it's light, it's entry level. It may be a failing on my part, but I just can't really find much more to say about it.
No, I basically concur. It's as far as Highland goes, it's stock standard.
There's a touch of toffee, but it's not. It's toffee that's not quite toffee. You know, it's almost toffee. It's not even caramel. It's the beginnings. That's what this whiskey tastes like to me. This whiskey tastes like it's got the promise of complexity. It's got the promise of depth.
Yeah, they could have. It's that starting point where you could take it several different ways and make it fantastic in several different ways.
It's like the base ingredient of a more complex whiskey.
Yeah.
Inoffensive. I don't want to say it's nice, but it is. It's a nice whiskey without really having any more superlatives added to it.
Without any character,
maybe hopefully this was the right whiskey to start with. But yeah, it's it's whiskey. I like it.
So I've just poured side by side the small batch.
Yeah, right. This was the same whiskey side by side? I know you've poured it. So you've got both whiskies now in operation.
So I've just this Master Distiller's Reserve and now the small batch.
Whereas I'm a pig, I've already finished mine.
Oh, and it's not a great deal different. Released and bottled in small, uniquely numbered batches, some of our finest and rarest whiskies come together to create a perfectly balanced malt with warm, fruity flavours and hints of spiciness.
I'm going to call bullshit on them putting their best whiskies together and putting it in a tasting pack.
Okay, when I compare the two, and I'll let you compare the two with what I've got left.
I'm going to.
I can definitely... There's more wood and more spice in just the standard. There's maybe a little... I'll let you... I know what I pick up, but I'll let you describe what you smell before I say anything. But I feel it does sort of bring forth more of the wood and more of the floral character out of the standard Master Distiller's Reserve.
I'm going to be honest. I'm struggling to tell the two of them apart.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. That's not a reflection on the whiskey. Well, it's probably not a huge reflection on the whiskey. It's going to be a reflection on my nose.
So I'm starting to get a bit more of the molasses on the aroma, on the nose anyway. Maybe not so much on the palate, as I have not sipped on the small batch yet.
I'm going to pour mine into my glass. It may be that
a little, perhaps treacle. There's something sweet.
Right, now, so that smells very different in my glass.
Okay.
To the one that was in it before. Now, in my glass, for those listening to audio only, my glass is far more like a brandy balloon. There's a lot more air in it. It lacks the tulip shape, which funnels the aroma of the whiskey up. But I can smell in with this second expression. You're right. There's more kind of toffee to it. It's a richer caramel, almost approaching molasses. It smells, even though the whiskey, the robe's comparable. I wouldn't say it has a distinctively larger or longer robe. You know, it lacks that.
The viscosity looks almost identical.
Yeah, it's very similar, but it smells thicker.
Yes.
There's less floral. There's more depth to it. The floral notes are still there, but it's the next. It's like half a step up as far as there's some toasted oats in there. You can smell the malt, like it celebrates the malt a little more, rather than. So the picture that comes in my head when nosing, as opposed to the low hill with the little white flowers over it, I see a barley field. You know, the image in my head's ripe barley. It's brown. You know, it's windswept. There's no bees here. There's
No.
You know, there's a fucking eagle in the sky. I don't know where that came from, but there's I don't even know if there's eagles in Scotland, but there's an eagle in the sky. Maybe it's a tern.
If it's amazing to go back to the original.
Oh wow! Now I can smell the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everything that this lacks, as in the first one, with depth. It's like this has been. Maybe it's spent a little bit more time in the wood. I haven't tasted it yet, so I'm not sure. But the difference on the nose is quite pronounced. Now that I've given myself a chance.
Yeah. So if the plain master distiller's reserve, if that's more of a springtime, I'd say that the small batch is very much more winter.
Yeah, fuck yeah. It's autumn approaching winter. It's it's the leaves are falling. There's a deep russet to the leaves. They're kind of crackling underfoot as you walk through. We're in Australia, so we don't get a lot of fucking russet coloured leaves crackling underfoot. It's just what I imagine it would smell like.
Colour's almost identical, slightly deeper.
But it smells deeper. Like, you're right, the colour's really close, but it smells significantly deeper. There's more complexity to it without being complex. Yeah. There's more depth to it without being deep.
But they're both clearly from the same family.
Yep. Yeah, they're definitely from this. They're fairly standard expressions of a Highland. So there still is a kind of floral nose, but I still haven't tasted the fucker yet.
And I think, for comparison's sake, I'm going to get the Solera alongside as well.
Yeah, you can taste the malt a little bit more clearly in this. It celebrates the malt itself.
Yeah.
There's a bit of fruit in it, like raisins, maybe, or maybe it's currants. But it's and it's just a hint. It's not overpowering.
So I get more raisins out of the first one. Or yeah, maybe might be caramel. Actually, yeah, it's more caramel. You're right. It's more raisins in the small batch.
There's a I keep coming back to the word cereal in my head. It's kind of like a.
No, I get that. The grain is celebrated more in the small batch.
There's a the alcohol. It's still balanced. The alcohol isn't at the forefront. It's smooth in the mouth, smooth in the throat. So it's not fiery. There's not as much spice to it as in the first one. So I'm not getting any pepper.
No.
But there is a maybe a touch of cinnamon, like some kind of toasted sweet bark, which sounds ridiculous, but that's what cinnamon is.
Alright, well, I've just pulled the Solera on Solera Vatted. They say the finest single malt whiskies are brought together in our Solera vat, which is never emptied, producing a whiskey with intense layers, velvety character, and honeyed sweetness.
Never emptied.
It's interesting.
So you'd expect it to be complex. Unless they're putting the same. That's interesting.
You could almost play a game of switcheroo here and you'd barely know which was which.
So, if these are all triple cask, you would imagine that one would be new oak. But I don't really detect a lot of new oak in the small batch. One would have to be American oak or ex-bourbon. Is one of them ex-sherry? Because I'm not detecting a lot of sherry in the small batch and no sherry at all in the Distiller's Reserve.
Here we go here. I believe all three have spent time in ex-sherry, American oak, and traditional oak.
What the fuck's traditional oak? Is
I was about to ask you the same thing.
Traditional? Fuck. It's oak, right? Is it new oak? Is it and the American oak? I mean,
it's traditional. It's got its old-timey garb on. It's traditional.
It's the kind of oak that you've got to ask your future father-in-law's permission for his
how many
daughter's
goats
in marriage.
for this? Maybe it wears a kilt?
Well, if it was traditional, it'd wear a kilt with no underwear on, right? Not like those new fandangled kilt wearers.
It's got its own tartan.
I don't know. I don't taste a lot of sherry in the small batch. The Solera, I don't know. Solera to me, I don't know what the fuck Solera means, but it kind of. When you say Solera, I think sherry. You say Solera, I say that.
Solera, I'll just go put my etymology hat on, and I'd say that's sol, Latin for sun, Spanish for sun. It might be a Portuguese, basically Portuguese fortified wine or something like that, is my assumption.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go with you because I don't have an etymology hat. And I'm not borrowing yours. Our heads are different sizes.
They're all very, very similar.
Yeah, look. There was I've said all I can really say about the small batch. I didn't not like it. I wouldn't buy it. I wouldn't give it to someone. And
well, they're all rather accessible / bland.
Yeah, accessible's the nice way of saying bland. Pardon me.
What are they of?
I think they've done the classic thing of overselling it on the box, which is it is something that pisses me off about whiskey. No, it doesn't piss me off about whiskey. It pisses me off about whiskey marketing.
Whiskey marketing.
The marketing departments of certain.
Oh, they're just trying to outwank each other.
Yeah,
It's just a giant circle jerk.
Yeah,
and I don't
you're
know
right.
what's better, if you come first or you make somebody else come first.
As long as you're not the one left with all the soggy sour.
I was going to say, as long as you're not last, you don't have to scull the dram.
Oh dear. That reminds me of a friend of mine got one of those fucking Google Home Assistants. You know, those things we...
They terrify me.
I don't think they're a good idea. But they were showing them off and ask it anything. I can't remember who said it. But what's it called? Hey, yeah, that's right. Hey Google, what's a soggy sour? Instantly came back with the correct answer.
Unreal.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to ask for like what was the last played porn video or something like that.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's the question I'll go to ask next time. I'm in
Drop
that
someone
situation.
right in.
Fuck yeah, throw someone well under the bus. This is why you shouldn't get fucking home assistants.
Oh, that whole
yourself.
Internet of Things scares the crap out of me. Anyway,
It's a terrifying situation we found ourselves in. It's. Oof.
did you see that ad I saw an ad the other day for a fridge that you can log into. It has a camera inside it. It'll turn the light on, and you get a picture of what's in your fridge.
Is this the one that fucking texts you when you're out of shit? Like it.
Quite possibly. That wouldn't surprise me either.
Get some fucking eggs. There's no eggs in my egg holder.
A guy from work has a door handle that is connected to his Wi-Fi. It's got a punch code on it. He can unlock it with his phone. So if somebody turns up, and he's like, "Oh, I'll just be 5 minutes. I'll just let you in." He can let people in with his phone.
On his fridge?
No, so just on his front door.
Dead. So fuck me. Now, that can't be very secure.
No, this whole Internet of Things is just gagging for hackers.
I mean, it's... We can't protect fucking... the fucking census data. Fucking Target got hacked and 30 million... This is years ago. Well, not that long ago. A couple of years ago. 30 million people's credit card details just, for sale on the black market. Who the fuck do you think's writing the code to protect your fridge? I don't know, man. And it's a weak point. Shit like that. Look, I'm not an expert, but Jesus, I've got opinions. And they're overwhelmingly negative about this whole Internet of Things. I don't know, man. Until someone designs better fucking security. I don't even use Facebook. Oh, yeah, that's a little more complex. Sorry.
A little more.
Sorry for my rant. For our tangents. That's okay.
So just to restate, we're onto the Solera Vatted. It's not Solera cask. Solera Vatted.
And I've just had my first sniff of it. And she's a little bit more complex. There is definitely a nice kind of... there's a nice deep toffee in that was lacking. It's like the potential in the first two are more fulfilled with that depth of not quite burnt caramel, but rich toffee.
Yeah, well said. I don't know if... I hope I've got this right, otherwise I'll sound like a complete fucking stooge, but I do kind of get that hint of fortified wine.
Oh, there's definitely some sherry in this one, for sure.
Well, if Solera's not a fortified wine, at least I've got the sherry to fall back on.
But yeah, there's absolutely, you can definitely The promise of the first two drams is more realised in this dram. There's more depth to it. There's a little more complexity. It is still floral. So for me, the small batch sacrificed those floral notes to achieve those toasted, kind of cereal notes. The Solera seems to combine them. There's the floral level, and the deeper undertones of the toasted cereal with the richness of the sherry or the fortified wine, whichever Solera is. We've got fucking devices in our pockets that could tell us what Solera means, but I'm lazy. It's a mystery. Mystery for the listeners to solve. Interestingly, and this is only the first taste, but I'm not certain that this is as well balanced as either of the first two. It's a little
it's almost, to get metaphoric, it's almost got a split personality kind of thing happening there. Two really distinct flavours that don't almost oppose each other, but a sweetness on the finish though, much sweeter than the other two.
And the balance doesn't really kick in till the finish. It's
quite divided at the start and marries itself together further down the tongue.
It's far spicier than the first two on the tongue. Or maybe that's a hint of whatever I'm referring to when I refer to the alcohol in the first two. It's kind of medicinal. I think it's less smooth. It's
I don't enjoy that as much.
It's a little up itself. It's not as refined as it pretends to be on the nose.
Yes, good point, yeah.
Just again, all three of them need to spend some more time in the wood, in my opinion.
But now, going back through, I've just nosed all three again.
So you're a fucking better man than I. You've still got remnants of whiskey in all three fucking glasses. I've got half a mouthful left of the last one. I'm a pig.
Oh, jeez,
Next time we do this, I'm bringing 3 glasses too.
Jeez, it really makes the standard stand out, even though it was not a standout whiskey at all.
I think, and maybe it's a...
Feel free to nose, that's the small batch again. The wood, the oak is quite much more prominent in that than any of the others.
You're right, that the small batch smells, and I think probably tastes, the most balanced out of the 3. It's, for mine, it's the most unpretentious of the 3. Because I think the first one promises and leave you wanting. Well, it doesn't even quite promise. It's just the first one kind of, it teases you. It doesn't promise you, it teases you.
Yeah.
The second one...
Yeah, it's still quite peppery on the finish, that. Whereas, yeah, you're correct. I totally agree with the small batch is the most well-rounded,
the
smoothest.
The small batch says what it delivers on what it tells you on the nose. Whereas for me, the Solera promises a lot on the nose.
It falls very short.
And it really fails to deliver. And this brings me to a thought that I've had a few times in the couple of years we've been discussing sitting down and doing this. And how often you read reviews of whiskey or tasting notes. And a lot of it is obviously marketing. But I find a lot of people, when they're talking about the whiskey, they try and find all the good things they can say about it and fail to discuss the shortcomings of it.
You wonder who is bankrolling their review in a way.
Because it always seems like someone is. I find them, and I don't know a single whiskey reviewer, so I apologise if I offend any of them if they ever even hear about this podcast, but I just find it a little bit disingenuous. It may be that I'm a pessimistic prick of a person. But
well, I've once heard somebody say, it was in reference to music, but they said in order to really appreciate something, you need to criticise it. You need to absolutely dissect it. And once you nut out all the bad things about something, it makes you appreciate the good things more.
That's what I tend to usually focus on. And again, it's probably because I'm somewhat pessimistic. But I consider myself a problem solver, and you can only solve problems when you identify them. That's just the way I tend to think. And it's the way I tend to taste whiskey as well. I taste what's wrong with the whiskey. And that's the first thing that comes to mind. And then I get around that and I taste the things that I enjoy about them. And it also means that when I taste a truly fucking spectacular whiskey and I've got fuck all bad things to say about it, I tend to rave about it.
Okay, I was about to ask, is there anything that comes to mind?
There's not many. I really, really enjoyed the Glenlivet special cask selection peated expression.
Ah, yes.
I really enjoyed that. I found very little, apart from the thing that I think you could say about almost every whiskey, unless you can afford 30-year-old whiskies, is that it just a little more time in the wood, just a little more time.
There's a no age statement.
That was a no age statement. But I found that to be a brilliant peated expression of a Speyside.
Which is not as common as it should be, I feel.
The last whiskey I had, I don't remember having anything negative to say about, was the Lime Burners PX cask.
That was a gorgeous dram.
The viscosity of it, that beautiful oily texture, the balance of it was just fucking superb.
Australia's in a golden age at the moment.
It really is. We are really producing some lovely whiskies. And I'm certain that there's many whiskies out there that I have not tried that have very few negative things to say about them. But I just find that a lot of the time, whiskies that I have tried, that I read about, what I read isn't in line with what I taste. And it's, while I can see the things that they say are in there, what I never read is the things that aren't in there. I suppose that's just marketing, but it pisses me off.
Well, speaking of reading, might we see what Reverend Jim has to say?
Fuck yeah. That's the whole point of having the Whiskey Bible, right?
Is it bookmarked?
It is.
Well, for starters, I'll give sort of my rating here. I think out of all of these, it was just the Master's Reserve, the standard. It's probably number one. Actually, no. No, small batch, definitely.
Yeah,
Sorry. Small batch, definitely. Standard number 2. And the Solera Vatted number 3. But having put them in that order, I could not give the small batch probably more than a 7. More than a 7.2 maybe.
Yeah, I don't think we've got the depth of experience nor the reputation to give it a rating out of 100, but I think we're capable of giving it a rating out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
I think 7's generous. I'm going to give it a 6.7 because I think that's a wanky, digit. Yeah, and 7's not divisible by anything, so yeah, it's just an awkwardly prick of a number to give it. But I give it a 6.7. The others I'm gonna give sub 6. And I think we're being generous, but it's our first podcast, so.
Alright, so the Glenlivet Master Distillers Reserve Small Batch. Jesus Christ. Reverend Jim's given it a 93.
Alright, we've got nothing to compare that to, so it seems high though.
But, however, he does call it, quote, by far the best Master Distillers Reserve in Glenlivet's armoury. So it's nice that we're on the same page.
Cool.
We'll just go to the Master Distillers Reserve. It is a shame the malty sparkle on the nose and delivery isn't matched by what follows. A pleasant, safe dram, but too toffee-ish and doesn't develop as this great distillery should, which is...
It's a much better way of saying what we were saying.
It's a far more eloquent way to... Yeah.
Well, the guy's been doing it for fucking ever.
Yeah. He's given that an 86.5. And finally, the Solera Vatted. Pretty much in line with the 2015 bottling above. Okay, so that refers to the small batch. Except there is slightly more caramel here, shaving the top off the higher notes. And he's given that an 89.5, so he puts it higher than just the standard. Which, yeah, I can't agree with.
Well, I don't think we're too far off the mark.
No. Well, there's only 3 points in it. So.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to put us on the same, even in the same postcode as Jim Murray. As I said, the guy's been doing it for fucking ever. He's the go-to guy, and the Bible is the go-to.
He would be a dream guest.
Oh, Jesus, that's a podcaster's wet dream, isn't it? But I like the fact that that it's comparable. He's probably rated a little higher than. But look, I don't know what he's. I don't know how he gets to 100 points. So
I believe because there is a breakdown here of nose, taste, finish, and balance, and I think they're all rated out of 25.
Oh, okay.
And it's just an add. He's just added them up. So basically, the small batch nose 23.5, taste 24 out of 25.
No,
that's bold. Finish 22.5, balance 23.5.
Oh,
and they're all within a few points of each other.
I think he's being generous, but then again, he's got a lot more to fucking lose than we do. So,
I think he sleeps pretty well.
Yeah, fuck yeah. I don't think he's going to hear this and go, shit, they're onto me. And realistically, he's got the experience that eventually, if we drink enough whiskey, we should be able to develop. But yeah, look, I'm not a huge, I don't love Highland malts.
No, I'd almost go as far to say that they're my least preferred Scottish. Scotch.
They're a long way from Islay, and that's where I Yeah, that's where I like to drink. Not physically. That's the
One
region.
day. One day.
Yeah.
Never
I
say
do
that.
own a square foot.
Are we owners or just custodians?
Probably just custodians. I didn't sign any paperwork. In fact, I'm pretty sure I just gave my email address. But hey, yeah, all I had to do was give my email address and I became a fucking dudist reverend. So, you know, that email address is clearly worth its weight in gold.
It's paid for itself already.
Big time. It's worth the spam I have to put up with. All right. So I've got a couple of little questions here.
Fire in the hole.
What kind of meal do you think this whiskey you go with?
Ooh. I'm not one to have a whiskey with a meal. Sorry, a whiskey with a meal.
Nor am I. I don't know why
But,
that is the question
But
that I came up with.
I could think of like snacks that would go with, probably. And being sort of quite light, well, on the lighter side, these whiskies, you probably want something with some good flavour. Something contrasts. I'd almost say like a nice rich cheddar, Mersey Valley crumbly rich cheddar. I think would
Yep.
complement this all right. Possibly even a I'm going to butcher this, a French cheese, a French soft cheese called Enepoise. I think that might be how you pronounce it.
If that was butchered, I couldn't tell.
Yeah, something like that. It's semi-stinky, nice and soft.
Okay.
What?
I was thinking a good stew. Like a hearty stew. Yeah. Get your flavour out of your stew. And then I just think, because it's a lighter whiskey, I think there'd be a nice contrast there. But I agree. I don't drink a lot of whiskey with food. It just kind of, it seemed a rich visual exercise. Or it just seemed an interesting question to ask. There's a couple more. What kind of reality TV show would this whiskey be? And look, we can expand that. If that's too tough, we can expand it to what kind of TV show.
I'm going to say like The Bachelor, because it's pretty thin, pretty watered down.
I was thinking, The Real Housewives of Wyong.
Oh, brilliant. I probably would sit through a few of those episodes.
You would. Well, you'd think you would.
Yeah.
But you'd get 10 minutes in and go, this is promising a lot more than it's delivering. And it wasn't promising much in the first place. Look, maybe not Wyong. Wyong's a little bit harsh, but maybe Real Housewives of Hornsby. Yeah, I mean, it's not.
Hornsby's
It's not a
pretty well
shit
to do.
suburb. Yeah.
It's quite a well-to-do suburb.
Yeah, but it's not. It wants to be North Shore, but it's not North Shore. You know, so there's nothing wrong with Hornsby.
No, that's what they call it, Upper North Shore.
Well, there you go. The Real Housewives of Upper North Shore. Then, yeah, just promises a little more than it delivers. Let me see if I've got another one here. I think this is one that I'll ask with every dram, and it's going to be hard because this is a tasting pack. So, but I'd guess that each of these bottles would probably retail. We could probably look it up, but yeah, they're probably what, $80.
I was going to hit the 80, 85 mark.
Kind of mark.
That's Australian dollars. We get absolutely fisted down under. Our taxes are very, very harsh here.
Yeah, I don't know what that is in other currencies.
It's about $13 US.
It's about £4. Is it worth the price?
No.
I think this will be a key question. I think that's a question I ask myself every time buy a bottle of whiskey. Is the whiskey worth the price?
I think even duty free for $50, I would still not be in a hurry to buy this.
Yeah,
small batch maybe if I had two other pretty average whiskies to choose from, and that was just to fulfill my duty free quota, I'd maybe consider the small batch.
So is it a whiskey that sits on the shelf to fill the shelf? Or is that overly harsh? That's not what I'm saying it is. I'm asking that question.
I'm not sure I understand the question totally, sorry.
That's fair. It wasn't really a very well phrased question. All right.
Had some nice rhyming skills there.
Is it a whiskey?
You're currently my favourite rapper.
Your expectations are low. I'm glad I made them. Is it a bottle you'd put on your shelf? Are any of the three of them bottles you'd put on your shelf?
The small batch comes the closest. Yeah, the small batch comes the closest. If it was on my shelf, I wouldn't be a tight ass about distributing it amongst friends and colleagues that came over for a dram.
Yeah, no, that's fair. If it was on the shelf, it wouldn't be a bottle you kept unopened on the shelf.
That's correct.
And it doesn't pretend to be.
No.
It's not putting itself up as a collectible whiskey. It's putting itself up as a drinking whiskey. It's not a first pour.
No.
But it is something that I would pour for someone that didn't know a lot about whiskey, that was looking, that was curious. It's not a whiskey I go to get someone into whiskey, but it's a whiskey I'd give to someone who I think wouldn't like whiskey until their palate developed. Light enough to give, and the small batch would be my pour as well.
I think if you were doing a tasting tour, it wouldn't be out of place as the Highland representative.
I think there's better Highland representatives.
Oh, there certainly are.
The first one that comes to mind for me is the Dalwhinnie. I think that's a lovely expression. I think is it a 15-year-old?
I'm unsure. Of that I am unsure. But that one that I had at your place with the blue label, that is by far the best Highland I personally have ever savoured.
I think that's the 15-year-old. But yeah, look, I don't want to be overly negative, but I didn't love it.
Yeah.
I didn't not like it. I just didn't love it.
So what music do you think would go with this? It has to be something you don't love but you don't hate.
Oh, it's a okay. So it's a cover of a great song, and it's not a bad cover of a great song, but it's not an outstanding cover of a great song. It's a cover that you go, yeah. It's a cover that sounds almost exactly the same as the original.
Maybe just what modern production?
Yeah,
or,
it's a cover where they've not really made it their own, and it's a cover of a good song. That doesn't really answer your question.
No,
that's a lot of rubbish, not altogether great words that expressed very little. So I managed to wait. Oh, look, if I could give you the 40 seconds of your life I just stole back, I would. But I can't.
I'd go something middle of the road rock and roll, sort of slightly hard rock. So say something like Chevelle, or it's not quite a Nickelback. Maybe a Three Doors Down kind of thing.
Yeah, I could give you that. But yeah, it's fuck, what's that band? They're really, really well known, and I've never liked them. But they're not. It's not that I dislike them. God, I'm negative.
Rock and roll band?
No, pop punk. Like that.
Oh, not that Sum 41 or something like that.
More commercial than that.
Oh, Blink-182.
That's the one. That whiskey for me is Blink-182's later stuff.
Okay.
Like when they just stopped trying.
I actually really liked their first album, but I was about 14 when it came out, I think.
They were still trying. I wonder if that says more about me or the whiskey.
Oh, I think it's not a bad place to wrap it up.
I think that's not a bad first effort.
Oh.
I think I'd like to be able to tell people a little bit more about the Glenlivet distillery, but I've got to be honest, I don't know a lot about it, and I don't think they're going to pay me to give reviews of their product moving forward.
Not now. Pretty much sunk that ship. No, I'm sure they've got something 12 or older that would be rather delectable.
Yeah, I think if we can find a nice expression. I mean, as I said, for the pilot, we've started with a gift pack, not a gift pack, but a tasting sample pack. I think they deserve an opportunity to have something that's more flagship and something a little bit more collectible tasted. So I think we'll give them the benefit of the doubt and give them another crack next time. But I've enjoyed having a dram with you.
Oh, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been fun.
It has been fun.
Lots of fun.
And that's the pilot's done. We've got something to build on now. So,
all right, folks. If you have listened, thank you very, very much. Hopefully, that was tolerable and somewhat informative, and maybe you got a giggle or two. Until next time, this is Rickus saying sluncher.
Sluncher.